Right. Devices away. We're going to start. Welcome to the big show. All right, let's leave Raul alone. I know RJ is fun, but let's leave him be. All right, we're going to pray. So, gentlemen, lose your hats a little bit, if you would. And we will get started. Lord, thank you for this junior high. Thank you for these kids, for bringing them here this year. And thank you for the chance to slow down a little bit and to hear what you have done and are doing in the life of somebody that we all love and care about. And thank you for this day, and we just lift up this time to you. In your name, amen. All right, birth rate report. Here you go. All right. Very good. All right. So, Grace, Ash, John, good job being born and staying with us for another year. Okay. Props list. It's a shorty this week. Where's Brian? Where's Brian? Right there he is. Good. The lights are very bright. So apparently in English class there's this bell, and the mallet or ringer was wimpy and underperforming. So Brian took it upon himself to make a new one, a mallet, and so now we have bell ringing. And Brian has left a legacy that will outlive him for years to come. So anyway, so Brian, on behalf of the bell ringing community, thank you and well done. So we like it when students take initiative. That's a good thing. Good thing. All right. Student council has an announcement. So where are my student counselors? Adam is one, and he's the only one. Is that apparently so? Flying solo apparently.
Yeah. All right, so I'm sure many of you guys have seen the poster, but it's a Super Smash Bros. Tournament. It'll be happening during lunch. It's teams of 2, so pick out your friend. And then in the spots next to it, you have to list your one character. You get one character only for the whole tournament. And then you can sign up through this week, and then we'll be making a bracket, because it's a tournament. And then on next Tuesday, the 28th, we'll start playing. So, yay.
Very good. Live the dream. Okay. Our speaker today, is one of our own, and these are some of my favorite chapels because you get to see BCS people in a different light a little bit. And so Ms. Clem is going to come and share her story, at least up till now, because it's still being written. But please welcome Ms. Jenny Clem to the big show. So, forward, back. This is your cursor control. Just make sure it's right on it, and then that's your play button.
Can I use this if I need to? No.
Probably
okay.
not. You'll be able to.
Right up here. All right, so to start out, I'm just going to show you a little video. Some of you know me, some of you don't know me at all. Girls have all know a little bit about my story because when I did our chapel, some guys, 7th grade guys, might not know who I am at all because I don't have you in class. And you were not the girls' chapel, I hope. I didn't see you in the back. So I'm just going to show you a real quick video that has to do with a little bit about who I am.
There you go. All you're going to do, yeah. Looks like you're going back. Looking up at us the whole way down. Here we go. 3, 2, 1, bungee.
the thing with that video, the scary part looks like it's when you're going down, but it's really not. Like, it's kind of scary, but then when you come back up, you're actually going faster than you were going down. So it kind of, you think, oh, it's done. And then it shoots you back up. But that just tells you I like adrenaline, as in I just like to go do fun things, gets my adrenaline going. And part of that just has to do, for me, with kind of living in the moment. And, oh, you need it closer? Oh, that is loud now. All right. But it has to do with more living in the moment, and my story, a little bit of what I'm going to share with you guys about my story will explain kind of why living in the moment is just so important to me. Let's see. All right, so growing up, you can see there's a few pictures of me and my siblings and family. So I grew up in a Christian home. My mom, you can see down here on the left with the big old glasses. That was stylish back then, so if you think they look silly, that was the in thing to do. And then there's me and my siblings. My 3 siblings are all older, and they are all very close in age, so they kind of grew up together. And then about 5 years later, whoops, I happened. So I was not an intentional child of the family. So I am the by far baby of my family. Not only in age, but in height. So my siblings are all 6 foot and taller. And then there's me, and you guys all know that I'm not that tall. But these are just kind of some pictures of our childhood. And the way we grew up was kind of different than some of you might think for a Christian home. A lot of you grow up in a Christian home. And for me, my family, we actually did Bible time at the table every night after dinner. My dad's a pastor, and so that was really important for him to make sure that we heard the word every night. So he'd read either out of the Bible or he'd read a story for us. And then after that, we went into the living room. My dad pulled out his guitar, and we had worship every night together as family. So it wasn't just like we're a Christian home, we go to church every Sunday. We basically had church in our house every single day of the week. Sounds kind of weird, especially with how busy our schedules are now. But then it was the best time of my life. I loved it. It was so much fun to just be able to have family time. We play games like that. I never really went and hung out with friends. Like I had my siblings who I looked up to, and then we got to have family time. So for me, that was just really precious and fun. When I became a Christian, I was 4 years old, and I was out in the driveway with my brother. The only thing I remember was that we had like old diapers that was old enough to like have grown out of that we still had at the house. So my brother and I pulled out brooms and we would play hockey in the driveway with old diapers. The only thing I remember was my brother was like, "Hey, do you want to become a Christian?" I was like, "Yeah, how do I do that?" And so then he prayed with me. I don't remember it, so I didn't really know what it meant to have Christ in my life, but that's what I remember as far as praying the prayer to ask Jesus into my heart. Not really knowing what that meant, but I wanted to do that, and my brother led me to that. So growing up, then, let's see, I moved out to Seattle. That's me about 7th, I think that was like 6th, 7th grade-ish. We moved out right before 8th grade to Seattle. So I grew up outside of Chicago. That's why I'm a Bears fan. That's why I talk about Chicago, is because I grew up there. But we moved out here, my whole family, we packed up the van, we drove cross country. We moved out here right before 8th grade started. So right around the same age all of you are. So I had to pack up, move across country, didn't know anybody. And then the whole reason we moved is my dad said, "We want to plant a church." I'm like, "What are you talking about?" He says, "Yeah, God is telling me that, we should go plant a church." I'm like, I don't know what he's talking about as far as listening to God. Like I had always heard my dad talk about listening to God, but I went, how can you actually go somewhere when you can't physically hear his voice? Like to me, listening to somebody is you physically hear them, not like a feeling or different things that have led into your life to listen to God. I didn't know this at this time. I'm like, what do you mean you're listening to God? Like he's talking to you? Is he like coming into the house? Like I didn't understand it. So we moved out here, and then a year afterwards, my mom, who you can see there's a picture of us when I was in high school. Also there's my family, my sister's wedding. But my mom was diagnosed with cancer. So when I was around your guys' age, my mom was diagnosed with ovarian cancer. And so that for those, it's pretty much self-explanatory. It develops in the ovaries. My mom just thought she had like normal pains, went to the doctor, and then she ended up having a tumor the size of a softball. So if you think about the size of a softball, she's like, oh, it's no big deal. So my mom was pretty tough and didn't like to show that she had a lot of pain. She just really wanted to be tough all the time. But then went to the doctor and found this out. Our family was just devastated. Like, why would this happen? We just moved out here to plant a church. We've only been here for a year. Like, what's going on? And so my family just gathered around my mom and we just prayed. Like, we prayed together as a family, and I went, this must be why it's happening. Like, it's because God wants to bring us closer as a family. That's why this happened. Like, there's got to be a reason. So for me, I'm just trying to figure out what is the reason. I'm being optimistic. I'm like, okay, she can do chemotherapy, and then she'll go into remission. Everything will be fine. So I was very optimistic when my mom was diagnosed. I'm like, everything will be fine. So after treatment, she actually did go into remission. And then when she went into remission, my dad, he had been pastoring at a church in the area, and then we moved to West Seattle. And that's where my dad actually planted our church. So now we had a church that we were starting. It started in a house, and then it slowly got bigger. And then some women that we had met in West Seattle that were part of the church, they actually came from another church, and we ended up getting a building. And that was just basically God saying, here's a building for a church. So I kind of started to learn a little bit about, okay, God providing, God giving things, like not understanding why this would happen. So then when I was 16, my first job, I was working at Jamba Juice. I'm at work, and I hear my mom had a doctor's appointment that she was going to go to, and it was going to see how she was doing. She had these doctor's appointments every once in a while. Well, she went to the doctor, and the cancer had come back. So first time, it was like, oh, everything will be fine. Second time, comes back, and I was just angry. I was mad at God. I didn't want to talk to God. I didn't want anything to do with him, because I'm like, why would this happen? Like, I get the first time, but why would this happen again? Like, I thought we already learned what we needed to learn. So why is this going to happen again? And so, I was 16. I was cooking for my family because my dad didn't know how to cook. My siblings were already out of the house, so it was just kind of me and my parents. And I was the one that was kind of taking care of them. I had become kind of a full-time nurse for my mom, so I was working. I was doing Running Start, which is where you go to college as like a junior and senior. So I didn't have to be in school as much, so I could be home more. I didn't go to any like school functions. I didn't go to like prom or any of those dances because I was just always at home. I didn't go out to go meet people because I was home taking care of my mom. And then when I was end of my junior year, I ended up getting really sick. My mom had just had a surgery and was going through chemotherapy because she kind of went into remission, which means that cancer goes away, and then it came back. Right, and that happened a few times. Well, one of the times that the cancer came back, I got really sick with pneumonia. Some of you probably have had pneumonia, right? You cough a lot, you don't feel very good, you go to the doctor, they give you medicine, you lay down for about 5 days and you feel fine. I did the same thing, went to the doctor, gave me medicine, went home. 2 days later, I couldn't breathe. Like, it took everything in me to try and take a breath. I had to sit up to be able to sleep. If I laid down, it hurt. So I went back to the doctor. They sent me straight to the ER. Right, I'm 16, so I'm not that much older than you guys. Straight to the emergency room. They put 2 chest tubes in me, which means they put 2 tubes. They stuck them in my side to start draining stuff out of my lungs because the pneumonia, the medicine didn't work. Then 2 days later on Easter Sunday, the doctors had to go in and do surgery because the chest tubes weren't enough. So they went and did surgery. I don't remember any of this because I was on life support. So if you've heard of life support before, it's where a machine is breathing for you. So you're not there. You don't know what's really happening because the machine is making you stay alive. So I was on life support for about 2 weeks, and then they got rid of the pneumonia, and I was starting to heal. And then, as I was starting to heal, as I wake up and realize what's happening, my mom had been going to chemotherapy and then coming and staying at the hospital with me. I'm on life support, and I looked at my dad, and this is just another thing that taught me just about faith and perseverance. Is I looked at my dad, and he turned towards God. Like, if you've heard the story about Job, everything's taken away from him, and he still turns towards God. My dad did the same thing, right? His wife, sick, going through chemotherapy. His daughter has been on life support and told that she might not live, and he is there and he's praying and he's staying, has joy and hope. And that's what this verse, Romans 12:12, says, be joyful in hope, patient in affliction, and faithful in prayer. These are the things that I witnessed my dad do, and I just saw him, and it just really made me realize, like, God is there for us, you know, even when times are not fun, you know, he still relied on God. It wasn't just, oh, things are great, yeah, God's good. It was, things suck, God's still good. And I started to realize that's it's important to know that instead of just thinking, oh yeah, God's good because life's good. No, it's the other way around too. When life isn't good, God is still good because he's always going to be good. I started getting better. I started recovering, and I was laying there because I was on bed rest. They were giving medicine at home, so I wasn't really allowed to be up and move around because my muscles, if you've ever heard of like dystrophy, my muscles, they just started to like break down because I had been laying in a bed for a month, right? No movement. So I was in bed and I could get up and walk here and there, but not really. And I remember it was springtime because it was right after Easter, just listening to the birds outside. All I wanted to do was walk outside. Where before that happened, that would never have been a joy thing for me. It just would have been like, well, yeah, I'm going for a walk. I wish I could drive. I'd rather drive somewhere. But it was just being in that spot in my life, I just realized, like, okay, when these things, like, this has happened to me, all I want to do is just be able to walk outside, like, and learning to take joy in just tiny little things that I'm able to do instead of, you know, finding joy in something extravagant, learning how to find joy in something that's very small. So after that, I went and worked at a summer camp. If any of you have heard of Furwood, I was a counselor at Furwood. Cool thing about that was I learned this experience and then I got to share it. So I went through this whole pneumonia experience, and then I was able to, a month later, the doctors were like, wow, she recovered so quickly. I don't know how that happened. Where I'm like, well, I think that was a God thing, because if that shouldn't have happened and it did, that's God's hand in healing me faster than I should have. So I got to share that when I was a counselor at camp. I got to just learn how God works in our lives so that we can share it with other people, and we can share how good God is and just the things he does in our lives. And what we learned, it doesn't necessarily mean it's a good thing. It doesn't mean it's something that's happy that happened, right? But it's still where we've learned and we are able to share that. I came back from Furwood, finished my senior year of high school, and then my mom's cancer, it kind of had gone in and out. She was still going into remission, which is, you know, where it goes away and then it comes back. So when I got home, I just was able to spend a lot of time with my mom. I decided to finish my associate's degree after high school. So that's where I finished my 2-year degree before I went off to college, because I wanted to be home with my mom. And as I was doing that, my mom had a final doctor appointment, which was in 2007. So I was almost 20 at this time, so I was about 20 years old. And the doctor said, okay, either you're going to have to live, to my mom, either you're going to have to live with a colonoscopy bag, which is basically you have a bag that's hooked to your side and you go to the bathroom in a bag and you have to change it. Or you can try chemotherapy again, but your body probably can't handle it anymore. So really there's nothing else we can do. That's the only option if you want to do chemo again. Otherwise, you're just going to have to live your life out. My mom we got to the point where we all talked as a family and we prayed about it, and just realized that there's a thing that's called quality of life. And if you are postponing death, are you really having a quality of life anymore? And so that's what we started talking about together as a family. My mom's attitude was amazing. I'm going to show you a video about my mom just because I probably can't talk about it. I'll start crying. But I'm going to show you a video of just what she went through and what she taught me. So this is right after her doctor's appointment.
Well, we met at Trout Creek Bible Camp, where we were both working on staff. And I guess the first summer we were there, we just were friends and we knew each other. He went back to school, that was in the spring, and then that
true. And if, as she faces her own death, reading Paul's words as he faced his own death, if they were...
So just to give you what you're going to hear, see Mark Driscoll. He was pastor at Mars Hill. My dad also pastored at Mars Hill. So when my mom started getting really sick, our church merged with Mars Hill. So the church that was my dad's, just because my mom was so sick that he felt like he couldn't fully pastor on his own. So we were a part of Mars Hill, and my mom did this actually for a Mars Hill sermon. The part you're going to see is kind of the snipped down version. What's really cool for our family is we kind of got a long version, so my brother got to interview her and ask her a bunch of different questions. But this is going to be the version of the kind of shortened version. As Mike's setting this up, so when you guys watch this, I just want you to think, like, yes, this is part of my mom's story, but my mom being a teacher and just the woman she was, who she raised me, so much of what she learned, she taught me, and so it really just became part of who I am and how I have been able to start viewing life through what she learned. So, is it hooked up?
Well, we met at Trout Creek Bible Camp, where we were both working on staff. And I guess the first summer we were there, we just were friends and we knew each other. He went back to his school, that was in the spring, and then that summer we were both working at this camp again. And so we dated on our time off that summer. And then he was going to go back to Wheaton College in the fall, and he had a football scholarship, and then that kind of fell through because of an injury. So he ended up coming back to Portland, and so instead of being away, we were together then that fall. And so then he asked me to marry him that November. So we had known each other for, probably 2 years. I think I pretty much never thought anything bad was going to ever happen to me. My life had gone, and like I grew up without really a lot of trouble as a kid growing up, and married a really great guy and had 4 kids. And I can remember I'd had, just some pains that I just, was easy to dismiss as just, just normal pains, nothing that was that bad. One day I remember feeling like I had this really sharp pain, and then it was, about 15 minutes and it went away. But at that point I thought, well, maybe I should go get a physical, because I hadn't had one for several years. But I never thought cancer ever, it never crossed my mind that it was cancer. The doctor called and he said that this CA-125, which now we know that test number really well, but at that time it was like some unfamiliar thing to us, was elevated. And I can remember at that point, I hung up the phone, and Bill and I just, we just wept in each other's arms, because we were just like, oh my gosh, I have cancer, or they think I have cancer, And it's so scary, it was such I just can remember that really well. I have really wrestled with a lot in the last few weeks of what I want to live for, because I want to be here for, all those little grandchildren that are going to be born. And, there's so much of life that I love, and I want to live it, and I have a hard time, I've really struggled with, honestly, why God would, I don't know why God would say, I don't have anything else that you need to be here for. I'm taking you. And I think I'm starting to realize that a lot of my desires are really selfish. They're about me. They're not about what God wants. And I gave my life to God, and so He is allowed to do what He wants with it. And if this is what He knows is going to be best for me and best for my kids, even though I just don't see it. And then I have to accept that that's, what he knows is best. And what's really kind of amazing to me is that I've been pretty peaceful. Obviously I have days when I cry. I have moments, both Bill and I have moments where we just start sobbing. And, thinking of the separation is horrible. But I think God has really done what he said, and that he says he'll be with you no matter what you go through, and he's with us. And he's said he'll give us peace that passes all understanding, and it's beyond my understanding how I can sit and have conversations with people, and I can read a book, and we can enjoy a movie together. And how can you be at peace knowing that your death is very imminent, And so to me, that's, just kind of an amazing thing. What I've been trying to memorize lately was out of 2 Corinthians, where it says, we do not lose heart, because even though outwardly we're wasting away, inwardly we're being renewed day by day. And it says, for our light and momentary troubles are achieving for us a greater glory that far outweighs them all. And the scripture after that talks about how we don't look at what is seen, but what is unseen, and we don't see all of what God is doing through the suffering and the hard times that we go through. It's hard to look beyond yourself, and I tell God every day, I don't want this, and I hope that's okay, but I'm honest with him. It's not what I want, but I'm willing to accept it. Jesus was agonizing in the garden before he went to the cross, and how he asked God to take that away from him, but if not, he said, not your will, but mine, not my will, but yours be done. And I thought, wow, I can really understand, and that I felt the same way. I felt like, God, I don't want to die, and I don't want to go through this. But Jesus, when he was there, he didn't want to do it either, but he surrendered his will to you. And I just felt like, that's really cool that I understand that better.
I can find it. Yep, that's fine. All right, so if that gives you a little idea of, who raised me, the coolest thing that I think my whole family learned and we talked about was, God has a bigger plan that we can't see, right? But through things that we go through, you heard her say Philippians 4:6-7. This has been a big part of my life as things happened throughout my life with my mom. And then afterwards, the grieving process, and part of that, I kept thinking about, be careful for nothing, but in everything by prayer and supplication with thanksgiving, let your requests be made known unto God. And you heard my mom say she let God know she didn't want this to happen. It doesn't mean that God doesn't want to hear you ask for something or ask for something not to happen that's in his plan. He wants you to be honest with him. And he will give you, and the peace of God, which passeth all understanding, shall keep your hearts and minds through Christ Jesus. God gives us a peace. So even when things don't go the way we ask him for it to go, it doesn't mean that he's not listening, he's not answering our prayer. It just means that he has a plan, and he'll give you a peace that surpasses any understanding you could imagine as you go through what God's plan is. So as I started to grieve, I started partying when I went to college. So I moved to Bellingham 6 days after my mom died. So I was still processing what was happening. I didn't even know really what had happened yet. The whole idea of when somebody in your life dies is that it takes it a while to really sink in. So I moved 6 days later, and so I started partying and just didn't want to think about it. That was kind of my way of coping, was if I don't think about it, I don't have to think that it actually happened, and so then I'll be fine. So that's kind of how I started to process it. My dad, this is my stepmom, he ended up getting married 6 months after my mom had passed away, which at that time I went, what, 6 months? My parents were married for over 30 years, and my stepmom and him, they got married quickly, and they've had to learn things about each other as they've been married, but he has been so great for her. But that was kind of, I think, part of his grieving process, was to have somebody around, because he didn't want to be alone, to have somebody at home with him. So after I was up at Western, I was up there for about a year and just went, this, the way I am grieving, the way this is happening, this is just not good. So I applied to Central, and I started going to Central Washington's teaching program. And so that's when I just kind of got away, kind of wanted a fresh start, started really processing, figuring out what had happened, and learning how to kind of move through that. So then after I graduated, I moved in with my sister. So the top left, that's my sister, and that's my niece. She is now 5. But I moved in with my sister after I had graduated from college to help kind of nanny for her before I started finding a teaching job. And when I started looking for jobs, I went, I don't know where I really want to work. And I started applying different places, and I never thought about applying to a Christian school. Because I went to a public school growing up. I went to a public state college, and the my friends who had gone to Christian schools, I'm like, that doesn't sound very fun. I really, for me, it's like, I really wanted to have an impact on lives of kids who weren't Christians. That was my thought process, was, well, if I'm at a Christian school, how am I supposed to help them develop their faith, because they're already at a Christian school? I want to be at a non-Christian school so I can help non-Christians get to know Christ. But after my sister and I, because I was living with her, started talking, I'm like, okay, well, I'll start looking at different Christian schools around the area. Still didn't think I would apply. And then I came across Bellevue Christian, and I didn't know anything really about Bellevue Christian. But I came across it, and you guys all have probably seen our mission statement, and just kind of teaching you guys how to live in our world, right? The whole thought is that we want to help you guys learn how to live in a real world, not in a bubble, but really know how to live as a Christian. To me, I just went, oh, well, that's how I want to help people. So I decided to apply. And then I was hired at Bellevue Christian, and that's when I realized, okay, when we moved to Seattle, and I went, what was my dad talking about God talking to him? I went, that's what it is. It's not necessarily you hear this voice that's it wasn't, Jenny, you need to apply at Bellevue Christian. It was that these doors opened. And because I had been praying, I learned how to accept a door that was open and think about it and really start to process it, instead of going, well, no, and then just shutting that door. Because I was trying to pray, I was praying and thinking about it, well, that door opened. I think I have one more. So how I kind of want to end, and what my mom was kind of saying, is God has a plan. God's plan is perfect. Whether you think so or not, it's perfect. It doesn't feel like it. So for me, I feel like, well, if my mom was alive, I feel like things would be better than they were if she wasn't alive. But God has this giant puzzle that we're just little pieces of. And so that's through my life until now, which I still have a lot to learn. But what I have learned so far is that, I'm just a little piece of a puzzle. And if I can just live knowing God is good and his plan is perfect and my plan is selfish, right? The world does not revolve around me. It is about God. So if I can start thinking that way instead of me, but think God, I can start understanding that his plan is going to be the right plan. Every time I start to think that things are unfair, I always tell myself, not my will, but yours be done. And that's what my mom said to herself, and that's what we talked about. It's It's not our will, because our will would to be with each other. You know, my mom's will would have been to see her 10 grandkids. You know, my will would have been to still have her